Static is a keyword in Java which can be used with variable, method and classes. In this video, I am going to discuss about where and how we can use a static variable and static method. Static classes is something I will discuss in a separate video. Static variable or static method, they are part of a class and they are something which is shared across multiple instances of a class. And to access a static variable or a static method, we do not have to create the instance of the class. We can just call them using the class itself. So to illustrate this, first let's take a case of non-static variable and non-static method. So we have a class user here, and let's create a non-static or a normal instance variable for this class, and we can call it as public int count is equal to 0. Now I am declaring it as public so that we can access it outside of this class, but normally we should not be creating a variable as public. Instead, we should keep it as private and expose it through getter and setter. But this is something I'll discuss in another video, why we should be doing that. And we can discuss this after we discuss about object-oriented programming concept. Now this is an instance variable. Similarly, we can create an instance method or a non-static method. And for that, we'll just say public void print. And as a part of the print, we can just do system.out.println. And for the println, we can just print out the count. Now, if we have to access this, what we can do is we can create user is equal to new user. And then we can say user dot count is equal to 2. And then we can say user dot print. And similarly, if we create another user object, name it as user1, now we are creating a new instance of the same user class. And now we say user1 dot count is equal to, let's not set anything for the count. Let's just keep the default value and let's just print user1 dot print. Now let's compile and run this application and let's see what response we get. So you can see we get 2 because we are setting the count as 2, and here we are getting 0 because we have not set the 0. So for instance variable, every object has its own copy of the count, and the print is printing out that copy or that version of the variable. Now if we just go ahead and make this as static, and let's keep print as non-static, it will still work. If we keep this as static, now what happens is, as you can see, we cannot access, it is showing an error. Static field user.count should be accessed in a static way. So the way to access a static variable is using the class itself instead of instance. So now you can see that the count is part of the class user itself. Let me show it again. If I do user dot, you can see count is part of user itself. Now if we do user dot print here and then we create the user1 and user1 dot print, here will be the change you will notice. Last time we saw 2 and 0 respectively for user and user1 object. Now when we print user.print and user1.print, remember both of them are using the same static member, which means the member is shared across both user and user1 objects. So we should be seeing 2 for both the print statement. So let's compile and run. And you can see we are seeing 2 and 2 in both cases. So that is the fundamental difference between an instance variable and a static variable, is that irrespective of how many instances we create, every time all of them are going to share the same value for the variable. Now let's create another instance of user. You can see user, user2, new user, and user2 dot print. If we compile and run this time, all the three is going to have 2. Now what I'll do is, and you can see here 2, 2, 2 as expected. Now if we go here and make user dot count is equal to 1, and then we just print all the three out. Again, user dot print, user1 dot print, and user2 dot print, and compile and run. We can see 2 is appearing 3 times and 1 is appearing 3 times as expected. So this is how the same variable can be shared across multiple instances of a class using the static keyword. Now next thing is about static method. So for static method, let's go back to Java class, and here we can just convert this into static. And as soon as we convert this to static, we'll start getting error here, because same thing, the static method print for the type user should be accessed in a static way. So for all these cases, all we have to do is change it to the class instead of individual instances. And now these 3 user objects are completely useless because we are not using them at all. But I'm not going to delete them, let's just keep them. And if we compile and run, we should see the exact same behavior as before. That is, we are going to see 3 2s and 3 1s as expected. Now one thing to keep in mind, if the method is static but the variable is an instance variable, we cannot just access a method. And as the error suggests here, cannot make a static reference to a non-static field count, meaning this is a static method. It cannot just reference a non-static value, because non-static, remember, non-static values are always associated to an object, whereas the static values are associated to the class. So static method as well as static variables are connected to the class, whereas non-static methods and variables are connected to an object. So if we have to access count, what we have to do is we can create var user is equal to new user here, and then here we can say user dot count. So this is going to give us the instance of user object and count of that. Now this is not going to be any count because we are not accessing this user. It will always print 0 irrespective of how we create the user. So the ideal way to do this is take the user object as a part of the print and use that count. That's one way to do. So we can take the user as a parameter, and then here we can get rid of these and we can do user.count or some other ways. But this is just to demonstrate that you cannot access non-static variable from a static method. So that is all I wanted to cover for today's video. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you are new to my channel and you think you are getting value out of my channel, please subscribe to my channel. And thanks so much for watching this video.